sorry, that's just anti-trans.
So this one is a Ray Alex Williams video. I haven't watched him in a short while on this channel. I find his videos quite interesting. A lot of the time he reacts to stuff, and I'd rather just react to stuff myself instead of getting someone else's opinion and then comparing, because I don't know, it's just, I don't think it's very interesting content to do that, personally. Reactception, or whatever you call it. So we've got this video, which is called Trans Women Keep Accidentally Rediscovering the AGP versus HSTS Typology. I'm actually super critical of the typology, because it seems very convenient that you can fit trans people into like 2 boxes. I think I've gone back and forth with him a bit on Twitter. Like, he's pretty chill. I'm not the kind of person that kind of flips out on people instantly, and I don't know, it's kind of a more of a best model he can find, I think, in his terms. I don't know. I don't really agree with it, but hey, interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think there's quite a few. I think a huge distinction for me, honestly, is like people who transition for internal reasons versus people who transition for external reasons. And I guess like the 2 main sexualities would be worthwhile considering. So it's not like I think that this typology is like bullshit, but it's very reductive. Anyway, so this is about rediscovering the typology. So I'm guessing there's 2 types of trans people, and it's like just basically the typology but woke. But let's see.
There seems to be a pretty big divide in the trans femme community between the radically queer trans femmes and the dolls.
Does that mean I'm a doll?
But the thing is, both sides of this divide are radically queer, just in
no, I'm not fucking radically queer. Disgusting. Never call me that, please.
different ways. As someone who floats between the...
Like, do I get a choice on that? What if I don't want to be radically queer? What the fuck does that mean?
Messy nightlife transsexual spaces and the terminally online trans femme gamer spaces. Honestly, the majority of us
I'm not in either.
are awesome. The majority of us rock. There's a few bad apples from each space that give
I think it's more than a few, but sure.
the rest of the space a bad name. But like, if you're a doll and you like putting hours and hours into your appearance every day, say
Wait, maybe I'm not a doll. This takes about like 20 minutes. I don't know.
but that doesn't mean that girls
Why can't anyone come up with a typology that I fit into? Maybe that's the way you know if it works. If I fit into it, it's probably... I'm so ready for the word spaces to disappear into the... Yeah, I don't know. I use it sometimes still, I guess, but I know what you mean. Hey, Chairman Meow. Hey, how you doing?
who don't do that are any less valid than us. And if you're a trans man who never wears makeup, that's awesome. Good for you.
If you're a trans man that never wears makeup, isn't that most trans men, or am I that far behind, I guess?
But that doesn't mean that the girls who like to...
Blair White is the alleged doll gender. I'm the metalhead gender. I don't even like metal either. I don't know. I like a few metal bands, and that's literally it.
Look and feel pretty and want all the surgeries, etc. are somehow bad. I mean, look, the reality is the government is trying to make our...
God, how soy is that? In what sense is the government? I'm guessing they're American. What's that then? Joe Biden, yeah? How's Joe Biden trying to make you fucking... your existence illegal? I hate this shit so much.
our existence illegal. And we're all in this together.
Oh, they're not going to explain. Good. I was just thinking that maybe they'd buck the trend of saying shit that they never explain and actually explain it, but no. Thank fuck. I'm so glad that we still don't have any reason to believe anything. You're not staying long. You can stay as long as you want. I don't mind. Hope you're doing well though.
There's absolutely no reason to sit here and hate on another trans woman because...
What if they're a nonce? What if they're a liar? What if they're a grifter? What about any of the other reasons you might shit on any person, whether they're trans or not?
Because of preconceived notions about them. Period. And if you're not...
Love it. This person would be like bullying the fuck out of me on Twitter if they knew who I was.
not a trans woman, you don't get to hit on us at all. Sorry. I just think our community is so much stronger when we're unified and we're together. So ultimately,
bend the knee. Believe everything that I believe. That's what you're saying, right? I don't actually know who this person is, but they use the phrase radically queer very early on, so I think I know what kind of person they are. and they think all trans people are radically queer, which I don't know what that means. I'm not radical in any sense of the word, except that I don't say the same shit as most other trans people do. Joe Biden made me radically queer. Now I'm going to queer boot camp so I can train to fight in the gender wars. But I thought the government was making trans people illegal. Like, I don't understand. I think, you know, maybe it's just exaggeration, but I'm not sure.
If you're one of the girls, I support you, period. As long as you respect my boundaries and don't put other girls down,
Haha, this person does not like me. Listen, it's not that I'm putting people down, by the way. Called criticism, but we can't handle any criticism. I would be amazed if this person's the same, but hey, maybe if I spoke to them, they'd be different. I'm so good faith, oh my god.
love you. Like a sister.
All right. So I thought this was a hilarious video just because it illustrates something that's so ironic in the trans community, which is that they talk a big game about how
Listen, I'm gonna sort of jump in on him a little bit. A lot of these people can only think in binaries, which is hilarious because it kind of seems like the only thing that's not a binary is gender, and everything else, you know, you got your pro-trans or your anti-trans. You're a gamer girl or you're a doll, you're a what the fuck ever. It kind of seems like that's a common feature of being an online trans person.
Blanchard is a transphobic and terrible person because he had the audacity to observe that, generally speaking, there are two different types of trans women as articulated in.
I disagree with this, by the way. I think AGP exists very definitely. I don't think the typology has as much strength as what Ray is saying. Maybe if I get more of a sort of informed perspective, I should try and talk to him, I guess. But I don't know. I kind of get what he's about, I guess. I've spoken to him before, like on Twitter, like really briefly.
In the video by this trans activist, which is, you know, the radically queer trans femmes versus the dolls, the transsexual nightlife versus the terminally online.
I've decided something. The radically queer thing, that means ugly, okay? You've got ugly trans people and good-looking trans people. Radically queer is really just another way of saying ugly. It's like the opposite of shorthand, if you get me.
Gamer trans lesbians or whatever. And Ray Blanchard noticed this. Like, he was doing clinical intake in for like a gender clinic. You know, he was sort of doing the assessments for whether, you know, these medical treatments were appropriate. And he just happened to notice that there seem to be two different types of
like, it's very convenient, isn't it? Like, he noticed that there's like straight boys and gay boys that transition. Like, there are many other kinds, like bisexuals. I don't know, if we give more categories in terms of sexuality, we're getting pretty infinitesimal pretty quickly. I don't know. I'm very, very cynical about this typology, if I'm honest, but hey, listen, I'm still gonna hear him out.
Trans women. And people always say, like, you know, Ray Blanchard, like, you know, it's so reductive to say that there's only two types. You're saying,
hey, that's me. I literally say that. It is reductive. Like, every straight transsexual is the same and every gay transsexual is the same. Like, yeah, I can't think why people would find that reductive. I don't know.
that this entire class of trans women can be clumped into, you know, just two categories. That's too simplistic. You know, people are complicated and blah, blah, blah. But like,
I mean, that is a fair, I mean, it's a very basic way of putting it, but yeah, that's a fair summation of what someone like me thinks. I do think it's reductive. I don't fit into the typology myself. Maybe that's biasing me somewhat, and if I looked into it more, I'd find that most people do, but I don't know, I have serious doubts. I need to like nail down my my Blanchard takes, I reckon, and like maybe try and have a conversation at some point just to see what happens, you know?
Regardless of any exceptions to the general pattern, even within the trans community.
Because here's the thing, you could argue technically, if you really wanted to get into like tiny minorities of people that don't fit, you know, a typology, you could say the same thing about sex, but like sex accounts for 99.99, God knows how many times, you know, of all people. I don't know that I think this typology really works for the vast majority of trans people, or trans women, should I say. My opinion is it's true that AGPs are trans lesbians, but it's not true that like trans lesbians are AGPs. Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, it seems very convenient that all of one sexuality more or less acts the same, and all the other also more or less acts the same. It's interesting. We wouldn't say this about like other groups, I feel like.
Communities, you will constantly see this pattern being recognized. Like, everyone knows that there's a difference between this sort of like these doll transsexuals, the nightlife transsexuals.
I'm still unclear on the new categories, by the way. So it's dolls and queers, or like dolls and gamers. I'm guessing the dolls are the ones that spend forever on their appearance, and I'm definitely not one of those anymore. But like, I don't know. Let's keep listening.
Who are into men and very effeminate and very passable, and have been very effeminate, young, effeminate homosexual males.
I think this video has gone out of sync because my computer is having a moment. Just bear with me. Again.
And have been very effeminate, young, effeminate.
Unless the video is just out of sync. Hang on, 326.
Effeminate, young, effeminate homosexual males from like a young age.
Yeah, no, it's in sync. It just went weird. Anyway.
Sorry. My cat. And versus this more terminally online, autistic, nerdy, trans woman who's into women, that sort of archetype, the more computer.
I mean, it's a very shallow way of looking at it. See, I think my feeling is it's going to be a bit of one of those, the people that are making alternate versions of just AGP versus HTST are kind of just talking shit, really. Like, I don't know if it's quite as serious. I get what he means, that they're kind of reinventing the same shit that they already have been saying, but I don't know. I don't have to agree with it more just because trans people are saying it, I guess.
Computer programmer archetype of the trans woman. Everyone knows that that's an archetype. So we have these two different archetypes. And I always hear people say, like, it's just not realistic.
Wait, he's muddling this up. The autistic young online ones are not the AGP ones. I'm not sure. The thing is, the video here didn't make very much sense, and they kept changing what they were saying. So it's going to be a difficult one to like really base a video on as it is, unless he's gonna kind of show a bit more of what's going on later or something. I'm not sure.
That there would only be two types of trans women. That's too simplistic to put people into two boxes. But it's to me, it's not that surprising. Like, to me, it's not like there's some principle in the universe, some principle in nature that says.
Just one sec. All I can hear is from next door. Anyway. Where were we? Ray Alex Williams. Here we go.
There can never be a population that falls into two distinct clusters. I mean,
well, isn't that a reason not to make two distinct clusters? I don't know.
That's a little weird if you think about it, to say that, like, oh, there's something theoretically suspicious about falling into two clusters along some particular dimension that you're analyzing. That's not that surprising. Like, you would.
Is it? I maintain that it is. I don't think he's really shown why it's God, what word do I have but valid? So yeah, hasn't really explained quite why it's valid yet. So
actually expect that a sort of two-type cluster would pop up in nature all the time. Like, that's not that surprising. I mean, I can't necessarily think of any example off the top of my head, but I'm sure if I went digging, I could find different typologies. Because what is a typology? A typology is a way of organizing your empirical observations of the world. You go out into the world, you go out into nature, and you observe things, your sort of natural pattern recognition.
I'm going to be honest, by the way. I think, to be clear, I think the AGP HSTS thing, I think it's actually like dead in the water. Like, even if other people use it you're never going to get trans people to use it because trans people in general are not going to call themselves AGP, and they're not going to admit to being an AGP because it's a negative thing, whether you want it to be or not. Like, if you tell someone that they're attracted to themselves dressing as a woman, and that's why they're doing it, they're going to take that as a negative thing because they might not see it that way. So I think it's a bit dead in the water anyway.
Faculties in your mind kick in, and you just sort of notice patterns in the world. This is the sort of like foundational layer of, you know, almost all, you know, psychology, particularly in the animal world. You're doing animal psychology, animal behaviorism, you're studying animals. A lot of it starts off with observation of behavior in the wild. It's called naturalistic observation. That's a foundational piece, and then you can conduct more rigorous.
Okay, some examples would be helpful here. I don't know if he's going to give any or if he just said that he can't think of any, but we'll see on that front. I think like saying something about a naturalistic observation, isn't that a bit harder in people because our behaviors are a lot more deliberate and a lot more like conscious, but I'm not sure. Some detransitioners do admit that that was a reason, but not many. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the best way is to be able to come up with a label that trans people and non-trans people are happy with. To me, it seems like you're pushing on a label that people find insulting. It's kind of a reason why maybe you shouldn't be surprised if they think you're transphobic, if that makes sense.
Testing, more experimental controlling, but naturalistic observation and just sort of categorizing. You know, it's like what Darwin was doing when he was out collecting all the specimens on his, you know, the voyage of the Beagle. You know, it's naturalistic observation, collecting facts, observing things, you know, and then you sort of see patterns in nature. There's patterns in nature. So why would we expect that there's not a pattern in the population of trans?
Well, it's one thing to say, yes, there's patterns. It's another thing to stick a line down the middle, right?
Trans women. And you see that there's even, you know, the trans women themselves comment and notice this distinction. And this is all Blanchardian typology is. And so to paint it as some like evil, terrible, transphobic,
Yeah, to be clear, the reason is it's because a lot of trans people find specifically the AGP label extremely offensive and insulting. And I'm not saying that means that it's wrong, but I'm saying it's a reason why if you push this theory, you might get called transphobic. Like, I don't personally think this person is transphobic. I don't think pushing the AGP HSTS thing is really transphobic. But I understand why, like, if someone called me an AGP, I'd be like, I don't like whack off to myself, and I don't get any kind of sexy feelings. You know what I mean? I just kind of exist like most people. So it just feels wrong. But I mean, I can see why a lot of people would be offended by that if you made out that that's what they're doing, you know?
bigoted, discriminatory, you know, theory that like, you know, pathologizes or stigmatizes. I mean,
well, yeah, especially like sexual stuff is going to be a stigma, right? And it's interesting how only one side is like sexualized and the other isn't, you know? I'm not saying there's like a conspiracy there against trans lesbians just because technically I am one, as much as I pretend not to be. But like, you know.
No, that's not really what's going on at all. It's just
well, good luck convincing people for the rest of your life, I guess. That's what I think of that one.
Noticing that there's two different types. And then Ray Blanchard, you know, being a scientific observer, he noticed that, well, what is the underlying basis of the two types? Like, where do the two types come from? Like, are there distinct causal pathways that lead to these distinct clusters or patterns? Like, why are there two patterns? Like where does that come from? Well, he noticed in the data in his clinical intake that
I don't think anyone would think on that. Oh, probably people would. I don't care, to be honest. Like I said, I don't find these labels offensive. I just can see very much why people do. And I think if someone, rather than saying, oh, you won those AGPs, was like literally, you look like you whack off to yourself or some shit, I'd be like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Maybe it's because I'm just like, I'm not a sexual person in general. And it feels a bit weird having that put on me. Like what? Because I was a straight boy. you know? Like, I don't know about that, you know?
Cluster can be defined, or these two patterns generally track your sexual orientation. So whether you are exclusively into men as a homosexual, and this is the sort of like, so
Yeah, the problem, the labels are very uneven. Like a homosexual, transsexual, okay, you were a homosexual man and now you're a transsexual. AGP means finding yourself attractive as the opposite sex. That's not a very even, like, you know what I mean? I don't think most AGPs go for the surgery. I'm not sure. I mean, hey, there's going to be a plenty of transgender lesbians who still want to use their penis. So, hey, wasn't me personally. So,
when you imagine this type of homosexual, like, you have to imagine like this sort of classic archetype for this.
well, aren't we going on stereotypes? Like, it's interesting. It's interesting how when it comes to transition, we're like hyper vigilant about trans people basing it off of stereotypes, but then we'll do the same thing. Like, why is it okay sometimes and not others, you know?
Is like,
to be clear, I think there probably is an extent to which it's inevitable that a trans woman is going to base some of their like ideas on femininity on like stereotypes, because that's just kind of how we work. And there's stereotypes that apply to men and stereotypes that apply to women. And in my opinion, a lot of trans really is imitation, you know?
the lady boys of Thailand. These are very effeminate, you know, homosexual males who sort of take on, you know, they're sort of like naturally very effeminate, like in their appearance. Like they're just like, they're more neotenous as individuals. Like they're more naturally feminine as males.
Yeah, see, he's kind of describing me, but I'm not an HSTS because I can't be because I wasn't a gay boy. Yeah, I mean, personally, my experience is that AGPs are trans lesbians, but non-AGPs are sort of half-half, not exclusively trans straight. Yeah, something like that. Like, I don't have much data when it comes to stuff, obviously. I don't know how many trans people are actually literally AGPs. And, you know, obviously good luck getting anyone to call themselves that anyway, but yeah.
It's like, even without any hormones or surgeries or anything, like they're usually smaller, more petite, they're more feminine. There's a sort of like natural
hey, listen, this whole thing will be like culturally biased to a certain extent. I mean, Blanchard, I presume, is American, right? Hang on, I'm gonna find out now because we got time. I've only got a few things to watch. American Canadian, wow, because there's a huge difference between Americans and Canadians. Whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, it's like a part of the population. I think it's like a distinct like type of human. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but I think there's sort of like in human nature, you sort of see this, you know, for lack of a better term.
Listen, my A-level psychology is going to come in handy with this.
Third gender type expression or like phenotype in, you know, this young gay community. And like, it's in that population that is this, you know, are the lady boys of like Thailand, and that sort of like classically homosexual, effeminate male living in this, you know, cultural role, like often involved in like sex work and stuff like this, like survival prostitution. That's very common. You know, being in the entertainment business, the beauty business, stuff like this. So that's all very common for this, I think, phenotype. And the other phenotype is like, you know, the asexuals, the bisexuals, and the heterosexual trans women.
Males do not represent two discrete populations. Only the human mind invents categorization and tries to force factor controls. Continuum in each of them, one of its aspects. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I see the point. I see the point of looking for patterns and identifying patterns. I think people are pushing way too much on this AGP, HSTS. I don't think it's a very good typology, to be honest. Like, I see what you're saying, but I'm not being blown away by evidence right now. It's a lot of it's a theory being justified, and that's fine, but it's, you know, none of this makes any of this more true, you know?
So Ray Blanchard just noticed that, and yet he's been demonized as this like terrible person.
Okay, we've explained why. We don't need to repeat ourselves, you know.
And they're constantly saying that, like, oh well, you know, autogynephilia has no scientific basis. It's all bullshit. It's like the scientific basis is fundamentally based on empirical observation of reality, and people who have spent enough time in these communities of trans women, everyone with eyeballs can notice this distinction.
Yeah, see, I didn't buy this. I'm sorry. I don't buy this. I need more. I need more if I'm going to start to buy this. I'm sorry. We've pretty much already said that we don't really have any examples. I get the theory and stuff, and there's some merit to it, I guess, but I just, you know, and it's really annoying because you can't really just sit there and say, well, are you trying to say that every formerly straight trans woman is an AGP? Because obviously they can get out of that. But even most of them just seems a stretch to me. I'd be willing to bet there's plenty of AGPs out there, but I don't know. And it's never going to catch on within trans circles anyway, because people find AGP like insulting as a concept. So,
and does the typology fundamentally?
Here's the thing. I'm interrupting and not really talking about what he's saying. How does he feel about being called cis, for example? Because there's got to be a sort of a single standard in a way. Like, if we're going to be calling other people things, whether they like it or not, and whether it really describes them or not, then do we not have to accept it on the other side? Because there's a lot of problems. People are expressing a lot of problems with words like cis at the moment. And I try not to call people cis. I use it when it's, you know, when we're talking about populations and it's a counter term, antonym, whatever. But like, where was I going? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, even if he does feel genuinely like this is the best way of like categorizing trans women, like, how do you get trans women to accept that categorization and accept that it's going to be used on them if it's the best way? Because there's going to be a lot of pushback from anyone being called an AGP who doesn't think that they want to fuck themselves. Like, if you tell someone, like I tell Ray Alex Williams, you look like someone that wants to fuck yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like, is he going to take that well? I don't know. I think there needs to be a single standard when it comes to putting labels on other people, I guess. Because I'm happy not to call so-called cis people cis. I don't have to call them that at all, you know? But at the same time, why does it get to work one way and not the other? You need sissy pills. I actually got more, I got more hormones, but I need all of them. I do have extra, but they're for me too.
This distinction. And does the typology fundamentally depend on saying that, well, there's only two clusters. There's only two clusters and no possible third?
Well, it's kind of suggesting that because you haven't given a third option. And I think if there was a third option, you could probably quite easily find a quite large population by saying it's trans women that don't want to fuck themselves as women, for example. I feel like that'd probably be quite an easy third categorization, but hey, I don't know. I'm somehow an AGP that doesn't really have much interest in sex in general, so yeah, I don't know. Fuck me. I think there's a limit to how dogged you can be about following this while also trying to make it more nuanced than it appears, if that makes sense.
Cluster. No, that's not actually what the theory says at all, which is one of the most common criticisms of the theory, which is that, well,
at face value, you know, that's what do you expect? 246.9%. I don't know how to reset it, so I'm just gonna have to hope people don't think that I don't want money anymore. I mean, I'm joking. Listen, people can do whatever they want. I'm not, you know, I don't give money to other streamers. I don't have that kind of money to give, so hey. But hey, also, while you're here, why not like the stream? You should like the stream. I'm assuming AGPs don't get bottom surgery also. Well, some do. I mean, well, some so-called AGPs do. I don't really know. It could be that some so-called AGPs are more attracted to themselves with a vagina, or at least the appearance of having a vagina. It's obviously not the same thing. I don't really know. AGP equals true trans. It's normally the other way around, isn't it? I mean, most of the bad trans people, you know, Blair White, etc., most of them are like homosexual transsexuals, I think.
Oh, well, you know, I don't fall into that pattern. You know, that typology doesn't describe me. You'll often hear trans women say that they don't fall into the clusters. It's like, oh, these two clusters, these two patterns, that doesn't fit into.
Yeah, see, I don't know why that. I guess he's going to explain, but that's a pretty obvious and easy criticism when you're giving two options, right?
My experience, that doesn't.
Like, am I looking at this like way too simplistic? I can't tell. It's like, yeah, I get it. There's not going to be literally two categories because that's crazy in almost anything, except actually no, never mind. Let's just say it that way. But like, what do you expect when you're giving two options that are very unbalanced, and one of them is going to be seen as insulting? I don't know. This whole thing is dead in the water. They need to come up with one that is not literally seen as insulting by most of the population. Like, if we're not going to force cis people to be cis, then why would we push this on trans people, you know?
Match my life. And a lot of the times I'm skeptical of these responses because
I think talking to him may be quite interesting, because I mean, if he's skeptical, I can very much force him out of that one quite easily, but that's only in my case, obviously. But yeah, and it's another problem with the fact that AGP is seen as insulting, and should it not be? I feel like I can understand. I'm just not easily offended. I tend to sort of separate my emotions from shit like this, but like, I can see why it's offensive to a lot of people. Aren't AGPs just transvestites, like a subtext of trans? I'm not sure. Like, I don't see it as being a typology, but I do think that AGP exists. I'm sure there's plenty of like males out there that have some interest in looking at themselves as female and whacking off or getting hard or whatever. But like, I don't know, the typology, I think it's a non-starter. And I think, you know, how the fuck would you get like trans people to accept this? It's like, you know, if cis isn't going to work for non-trans people, how are we going to get AGP to work for like trans people? You know, I don't know.
I think one, it's a kind of, there's, you know, common a scripted response. It's sort of just like a default political knee-jerk reaction to reject the typology. And so
I would say that's very possible and probably does happen. You probably do get AGPs pretending they're not, but it should be to be expected. And you can't really assume that someone's being disingenuous because they're not happy with the label, you know?
I think there's an unconscious motivation to like not recognize yourself in the cluster patterns. And also there's like a misunderstanding, I think, of the asexual AGP.
Yeah, this is what I mean. Like, if we can't get cis people to be cis, it's like, how are you going to get trans people to accept being something that literally means you want to fuck yourself? Like, come on. Hi, Woody Red. How you doing? We're criticizing gender criticals for once. Well, for now, it's not going to last very long.
Phenotype, which is, I think, not commonly understood. So people who don't have super overtly sexual, you know, masturbatory erotic lies, you know, they might think that they don't fall into.
This person is someone called Ray Alex Williams. He's a big proponent of the not just AGP, as in like the Blanchard theory, but also AGP and HSTS typology.
To the AGP classification, when there is a whole part of the theory of AGP that there can be an asexual phenotype that doesn't take on this overt.
So some of the AGPs have an asexual phenotype? Okay, maybe he's going to explain this in a minute. You're sub to him. To be honest, I quite like his content, but I'm very doubtful about this typology thing. Geese fetishes are so complicated. True. I wonder if we can we like get a two-side typology for like male fetish shit. I reckon we can come up with one if you try hard enough. The other thing to bear in mind is reflexivity. How do you mean?
Fetish.
Reflexivity, not reflexitivity. Jesus Christ, I'm so sorry.
Fetishistic behavior that's with the high libido you typically see in AGP, but
yeah, because he's making it sound at the moment that it's like, well, this can have the thing that it means, but it can also have the opposite. Like, what? So you're just doing straight and gay. Well, why not come up with a slightly nicer way of saying AGP then? I have a knee-jerk reaction when you kick me in the shins too. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I just thought this video was like interesting, and I just wanted to
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah.
like respond to it because like
The problem is he said he didn't give examples for a lot of stuff he's saying, and I think he admitted that, and that's fair enough if you don't really have any. But like, I just think, like, I like plenty of his videos. I think this is kind of the weakest kind of thing that we see, though. Like, this is never gonna work, I don't think. Like, you're never gonna get trans people to accept this label. I think, at the very least, like, maybe it's a good basis to, like, build on, but it's not gonna work this way, you know? Like, I don't know if having such an imbalanced, like, typology is ever gonna work for any group, quite honestly. To be honest, any label describing AGP behaviors will soon be deemed an insult, negative. Yeah, of course. And, like, it's difficult, but I don't know, maybe it's just not a great way to separate people, if that makes sense. Like, maybe we shouldn't really focus so much on, like, the fetish aspect of it, because that's literally what AGP does by the name of it, surely.
I don't know, these transactions.
What'd you say? Wait till you open the super center for unethical experiments in Antarctica. Hey, listen, I'm down if you need help with that.
Activists, like,
I've been trying to fuck off away from other people for a long time, and that sounds like a great excuse.
I think they're going to lose this battle because people notice things, like, and you can't stop that.
Nah, I disagree with this. I don't think it's got legs. I don't think it's gonna persist. I think the most places it's gonna persist is kind of transphobic areas, which, you know, you can see why it's another way it'll end up getting made out as transphobic, but like it already comes across a bit that way. So, and listen, I don't even know if I think this is transphobic. It's a theory, but I can see why it's not something that we'd want to be called, right?
And, you know, there's more and more information coming out about this. More and more people are talking about this. Like this Blanchardian typology is becoming more and more mainstream because it tracks onto reality.
Again, like, what's an example? More and more mainstream. Like, show me something. It's mainstream. It must be fairly easy to find. I mean, I can't read his mind. I could go look up a bunch of things about AGP, but I don't know if I'd be finding what he's specifically saying.
Tracks onto empirical observation. If even the trans activists are noticing this distinction, this pattern, then other people are definitely going to notice.
Again, like, example, like, flash up a few tweets or some shit at the very least.
That pattern, and they're going to talk about it, and they're going to comment on it. And all Blanchardian typology is doing is trying to say, hey, what's the explanation for this distinction? You
give a little to get a little. Yeah, of course.
The like Blanchardian thesis is that the explanation boils down to differences in sexuality. Now, that's not saying that, like, you can reduce the entirety of transgenderism to sexuality. Like, obviously,
see, like, anyone with a brain would be able to say that no, obviously there's not two categories, but the typology is two categories. Like, surely it's surely it's a criticism he's going to be coming across, like, over and over again for the rest of his life. I don't know. It kind of seems like coming up with a slightly more neutral kind of way of expressing it, and maybe not focusing it quite as much on, like, a paraphilia or whatever. Like, maybe that would be a lot better and would enable a bit more of a sell. Because this is what I mean, you know, you have to be able to get people to accept their own labels if you're going to label them. Like with cis, you know.
Obviously, there's more involved. Just like, you know, it's like trying to reduce the entirety of, like, a gay man's life to just what he does in the bedroom. But obviously,
well, sure, but that's what you're doing. That's the problem. I think that's the problem people are having. And you can be like, well, it's not that simple. And it's like, okay, it's expressed very simply. It's two types, you know? I don't know.
Obviously, being a gay man impacts many aspects of his life, his thoughts, his feelings, his desires, his identity. You know, his sexuality, you know, impacts, you know, many aspects of his life. that go far beyond just the explicit, sexual stuff. And that's same for heterosexuality too.
Well, then use a different term that isn't about wanting to fuck oneself. I don't know. Oh, are you heading off? Good to see you. To be honest, I think you'd probably find the other stuff boring. I'm trying to finish the queer Kiwi thing because she's not worth spending that much time on, so. Ray has skin in the game as a D-trans. What does he define himself as? He defines himself as AGP. And I also get why D-trans women, MT, FTM, whatever you want to call them, I also very much get why they would be happy calling themselves an AGP where a lot of trans people wouldn't. So I do understand there's probably more AGPs out there than who are willing to admit it. But I mean, when you're calling someone a fetishist, like what do you expect in a way,
It's like, there's all this like courtship behavior and romantic behavior, and a lot of our activities are driven by our sexual desires. I mean, at an unconscious level, like most of the activities that are happening in civilization on a day-to-day basis are fundamentally driven.
Love you, but I can't listen to people who say you're reducing me to, fair enough. I don't know. You're thinking kind of gender critical and trans circles. You'd hear loads of that, AGP Uno reverse card.
By, our unconscious desire, our drives to seek out mates. I mean, it doesn't feel like it consciously and like our consciously understood motivations, but unconsciously, like, when we are seeking out a career or engaging in creative acts, like a lot of that is like, part of these unconscious drives to like do things that we think will impress someone that we want to, date, so, and this is why
Okay, we're getting quite tenuous. I'm just not feeling this video, I guess.
Freud, I think, was right.
No, listen, I'm in my nice era. I'm trying not to be mean about anyone, so I'll just say it's not for me. It's okay. You can think what you want. It's not for me.
Right. That, almost all of mental energy is ultimately sexual energy. Like we're all driven. We have these drives.
I don't even know how true that is. I mean, for a lot of monogamous people, doesn't this kind of stuff just cease to really be a problem? Like when I go out nowadays, I don't care about like really talking to people all that much because I'm there with my partner. It's like most things, like I don't have any of that in the back of my mind because A, I'm not looking to mate with anyone because I literally can't. And B, I'm not interested in it anyway because I'm in a relationship, I don't know, like there's a lot of questions. I think I need to like consolidate some of my thoughts on this and come up with my own kind of like nail down my own opinion on this typology thing because I really see it as like, I think it's dead in the water, to be honest. I think there's a lot of people that are going to be a lot more well served trying to evolve it instead of just trying to pull everyone into it. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, this typology, it's quite old, is it not? Let me just listen. I already had it open and I had to close it. So. Transsexual typology. I just need to know what year it was. We're talking about Freud. I'm looking for... Do we just not tell anyone when things happened anymore? Like, this should be the easiest thing to find. It's like, Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, between the 1980s and 90s, so quite a while ago. Should we be harking back to this constantly, or should we be trying to push it forward and evolve it? I guess that's, if there's a main question I have regarding this video, I guess that would be it. And I definitely need to just get my head around all the history of it and stuff, and form a concrete opinion. But I don't think this holds much water, to be honest. And even if it did, like, good fucking luck getting like trans people to ever accept it. I don't see that happening either. And it should work both ways, in my opinion.
And, all animals are driven by their sexuality, which is, like,
again, like, does this work for monogamous people that are in relationships, like married people? Like, some of them, yeah, but all of them? And, you know, we can compare ourselves to animals. I do sometimes, you know. I personally think that evolution shows that sex is at the very least meant to be binary. But, like, when it comes to, like, conscious and unconscious things, we just operate on such a different level, I guess.
Evolutionary drive to, you know, have sex. I mean, that's such a core part of, like,
and also, if that's true, then that makes the AGP thing not make much sense, because you're just wanting to fuck yourself. That's not, you know, why would you evolve something like that? Like, I don't know, I need to come up with a more substantive criticism, but it just hits wrong, you know?
what an animal is and what they're all about, particularly, you know, mammals, particularly apes, and particularly humans. I mean, it's just like, it's weird to me that people say, like, oh, like, you're saying that, like, you know, transsexuality is, like, you know, all about sexuality. Well, so what? Like, a lot of human behavior, a lot of human psychology is sexual in nature. Like all this mental energy that we spend, you know, like, it's often a sublimination.
You mentioned to impress someone, so I don't know how AGP plays in. Yeah, I'm really struggling to make much connection between some of the statements in the latter half of this video and the actual typology itself, which is, it gives me an odd feeling, I guess. I don't know. Again, I'm going to have to think about this and, like, come down with a thing. Maybe I can try and talk to him again. I did have a back and forth with him on Twitter, and it was perfectly civil. He seems like a nice enough guy, you know what I mean? I'm not shitting on him as a person, but I definitely have a lot of questions around this kind of thing specifically.
Of these sexual energies. You know, that's like almost all of civilization. And we sort of, like, yeah, anyway, I'm going off track, definitely. But all right. I think that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, there we go. Ray Alex Williams, AGP, typology, Blanchard typology. There we go. Yeah, I know. I have a lot of questions. I definitely need to consolidate my own thoughts. Maybe see if I can have a conversation or two on this topic and see where it goes, really. Because I think there's a lot of problems with the theory. And if he thinks it's the best theory and that's literally it, then maybe. But I don't know. Should we be constantly harking back to these kind of theories, or should we be trying to, like, evolve them? Because it seems like an odd thing to have never really developed. Like, you've got two types of trans people, especially the way trans has changed so much in the last, like, 5 to 10 years. You'd think that'd be, like, the ideal time to make a new go of it, you know, and maybe make it more appealing to the people themselves. But it doesn't seem to be what's going on. But hey, yeah, we'll look into that more.